You have children?
I do not, no.
Oh, you and your wife don't have children?
No.
Why not?
It's a very personal thing, but
okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the only reason to get married is to make children, right?
I don't think so. Listen, look, man, the reason I married my wife was to lock her down because I was not going to do any better than that in my life. So that's my purpose for getting married. I have an incredible partner in this life that has made it exponentially more enjoyable to live.
And were you looking for love when you married her?
I was looking for many things. Love was definitely one of them, or someone to share in love with. Also someone to build a future with, someone who shared similar values as me, someone that I was, frankly, someone that I thought was attractive, and I definitely nailed that one. But I was looking for many things. But yeah, sharing sharing love with someone was definitely one of those.
So once you married her, were you shocked or disappointed to find that women don't have love to give?
I didn't know because I don't believe that's true. Where does that come? I'm curious. Why do you believe that?
Women don't have love. Women receive love, but they don't have love to give. The love comes from God through Christ, through the man, through the woman, to the children. It doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have love to give. They receive love from the man who receives it from Christ.
That's interesting. I don't believe that.
Why not?
No, I wasn't surprised because I don't believe that's true.
Why not?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that love is something that comes down from a paternalistic figure down to males who then give them to females. I don't.
Where do you think love comes from?
I think love is an emotional response. And it comes from all sorts of things. And it's also the type of love we're talking about. In this case, romantic love comes from the fact that you are both in love with the person that you're sharing your life with, and the fact that you're in love with the fact that you're sharing your life with that person, and you get to share in that love together.
So who created love or created love?
I'm not sure I have an answer to that question. I think that we in the same way that we can create our own happiness, we can certainly create the conditions that lead us to be able to have more love. But I'm not sure that love is something that was created. I don't believe love was created by a specific entity.
Really? You just think it came out of thin air or something?
Well, I don't think it. I think that love is an emotional reaction.
Well, who
it's an
created
emotional manifestation?
Who created the emotional love?
Yeah, see, this speaks to the question of who created everything. And like I said, I don't think that any of us actually, not only do I think any of us know who or how these things were created, I think that we don't even have the ability to process the question of who created all of this, why was it created, how does it run, what is the purpose behind it, what happens after we die, those types of questions. Those are all existential questions that I think that we are so low on the totem pole of being able to understand it. I think what looks like chaos and cataclysm to us, if you zoom out far enough, looks like perfect harmony, in the same way that if you zoomed into your gut and saw the wars and genocides being carried out by trillions of different living creatures, different microbiome, it would look like a cataclysm. But you zoom out and it's your digestive system in perfect harmony. I think it's probably a very similar thing. But again, I don't think that we have the cognitive or perceptive ability to even be able to understand it, much less be able to explain it.
So if you believe that, why do you call emotion love?
If I believe that, why do I call emotions love?
Yeah, you said love is emotional.
Because I believe that love is an emotion, yeah.
So if love, if this emotional thing you call love is love, why does that turn to hate, turn to love, turn back to hate? It goes back, it's never consistent. It changes up and down from hate to love, love to hate, because that's what emotions do. Emotions based on how you make someone feel.
Right. Yeah. So your emotions change. It's not that love is turning to hate necessarily. I guess you could define it that way, but I would say sooner that you're feeling love in one moment, and then in another moment you might be feeling hate or anger or hope or happiness or sadness or whatever. I think these are all emotions that are elicited from both things that are happening internally and things that you're experiencing externally as well.
So have you ever considered that emotional love is not love?
I haven't. I also wonder how much of our what we're doing right now is less of a disagreement and more of a differentiation in terms.
Well, I do know for sure and without a doubt, emotional love is not love. That's why
Okay.
it switches based on, it goes up here, you feel good, they call that love. Then it goes down here, you feel bad, and they call that anger, which it
Right.
is. But this fake love of feeling good is hate as well. That's why it doesn't stay. Perfect love is the same all the time, no matter what the condition is or what happens, the issues are in life. That love, because it does come from God and it's dispassionate. God's love is not a passion, it's dispassionate. The devil's love is passionate, it's emotional. And so the people who think that they're in love and all those different feelings is love, they are being deceived. And that's why you're constantly looking for something or someone to make you feel good so it can bring you out of that bad feeling temporarily, but that doesn't last either. It
Yeah, I
goes
don't
up and
think.
down.
I will say I do agree with you on one thing. I think that the idea that you can find happiness or love in this perpetual state through other people or other things is false. First of all, you shouldn't be trying to find your happiness in others or other things. Happiness is something that you create and you can share it with others. But I think the other thing is that there is no, this is sort of like how, like, a yin and yang type thing. You can't have good without bad, right? You can't have light without shadow and darkness. All things have a contrast to it.
Right.
So in the same way, I don't think that you can truly have just this perfectly loving, emotional, or I know you're saying not emotional, but this perfectly loving experience in all things, because naturally, the reality is that you're not always going to feel the same way about something. Now, you mentioned God's love, but there's also been in Scripture, there's plenty of references to God's wrath and God's hatred, and all sorts of different. You may not want to call it emotions, but all different feelings that God would have at various times. So even within Scripture, God was not always is not always described as experience a state of loving in that moment.
But God has never and does not have emotions, and he doesn't have the anger that human beings have. And human beings are comparing their emotion, their anger, and their fake love to that of God when it has nothing to do with it. God's love is perfect peace, and it's that way in all situations because he separates you from the situation with his perfect love so that you can overcome any situation. Because emotions are of the devil, and anyone that has anger has emotions, and that's why they're not able to deal with anything because they don't realize that Satan is their God and not the true God, not the God above, but the God below, which is the devil.
So then, like in the times in Scripture, I honestly I don't have an answer for this, so I'm interested to get your thoughts on it. In the times in Scripture, when it describes that God got angry, or that God got upset, or that God regretted something he had done, or that God was hateful of something, are you saying that wasn't emotional? And if so, like what? How would you define when God was experiencing those things? How would you define that?
Well, it was discernment. That's why
Okay.
when you return to the Father, you overcome that emotional state of being that comes from the mother, and you become like the Father. And the Father operate out of discernment, the ability to see injustice and deal with it without becoming like it. Because if you resent or be angry, which is the same, then you become like whomever or whatever makes you angry. You become subject to it. But if you didn't,
That's true.
if you didn't resent it and operated from perfect love, then you could not and would not give into evil. You would deal with it in a strong way, but you would not hate it and you would not give into it.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I think that I'm not sure any of us meet the ideal of never experiencing emotional reaction to things, but it certainly falls within the belief that you should respond to things and rather than having just an emotional reaction to it. I don't think it's like I said. I don't think it's possible for us not to experience things like anger or resentment or hatred or sadness or anything like that. But it certainly makes sense to figure out how to deal with whatever that thing is as you put it, as dispassionately as possible. Figure out why you're having that reaction and dealing with that, as opposed to just living within that reaction. That I agree with. I will say, I think a lot of, because you're I believe a Christian,
Yes.
and because I don't think that this is something that can be defined in the belief systems we have. I think a lot of there are probably things we're disagreeing on, but I think there are also a lot of things where we're maybe using different differentiations in terms to describe largely the same thing.
I agree with you that all people deal with anger. That's because all people are born through the woman. And as a result of born through the woman, you become emotional like her. And because she imposes her will on you and recreates you her image, which is the image of the devil. And that's why God said, all who are born through the woman of the flesh must be born of the spirit. And that's how you overcome. And that anger that's in the woman is not her nature. It's an abnormal nature that made a home in her, which was passed down to Eve. When Eve believed a lie, that the devil became her God. And when Adam believed the woman, Eve, the woman became the man's God. But thank God he sent Christ so that we can return to the Father and overcome the woman. Have you noticed how women are men's God? The man can't deal with them properly. When they break up, he feels like he lost his God. He's always looking for mama's love because he became like what he hate. When you're mad at mama, you become like mama. You become angry. You start to live in your imagination. You have fear and doubt and worry. But once you are born, by forgiving your mother for turning you away from your father and being born of your father, loving your earthly father, then all that stuff starts to disappear and you can have an amazing life right here on earth. But you got to forgive your mothers.
So there's a few things there. I'll just do them in the order you said them. So first of all, yes, I have seen that men who, lose their relationships with women, they deeply regret it. They obsess over it. They, as you put it, make it their God. But I've also seen the same in reverse. I've seen where women who lose men act the same way. I've seen men who, regret not having better relationships with their mothers. But I've seen a lot of the reverse, probably more of the reverse, with women who regret not having a strong father in their house, or that their father was absent, or that they didn't have a good relationship with their father. So I'm not sure it's this binary. Men are experiencing one thing and women are experiencing the other. I think that people
it comes through
are
the
experiencing
it comes through the woman though. That evil that we see on earth, comes through the woman until she overcome by forgiving her mother for doing it to her. God will forgive her as well, and he will rebuke the spirit of the devil from her and replace it with his spirit, which is of love, perfect love.
Yeah, I don't believe it's something that uniquely comes through the woman. Also, you mentioned,
did you believe that when it happened to Eve?
Against father, you mentioned mothers turning their children against father. My mother certainly never did that.
How do you know that?
Because she didn't.
How do you know?
Because she was. My parents have both been incredibly supportive of my having a good relationship with the other, and there was no break in that. There was no. What would be an example of my mother turning me against my father? While
raising you, did she do anything that you resented at the time to you?
Both of them did things that I resented, but usually,
how about
almost always, they were things that in retrospect, they were right and I was wrong.
Did your mother do anything that you resented while growing up and you wish that she would stop or not do or blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, but again, so
like
did my
what,
dad,
for an example?
Oh, typically telling me I shouldn't be doing something. But again, she was usually right. At the time, she didn't understand and I knew better than her, but she was actually right. But
and when you would tell your father, tell your father to have her to back off, what would he say? Would he do that? Make her back off of you?
It was usually him that was the disciplinarian, so I wasn't usually having to tell him to have her back off.
So when your mother would irritate you,
I just want to take a step back. This was not the interview as I was expecting. It's a very interesting conversation, but I was not expecting this.
Right. So one last thing about that, because I do want to ask you more questions about different things. Did you, when you would tell your father to have her to back off, would he deal with her for you when you were young?
Can you ask that again when I'm asking who to do what?
When you would ask your father to make your mother back off, to stop yelling at you or trying to control you or being too mother, whatever she did, And would he have her to leave you alone, back away from you?
I don't think that ever happened because my parents were a united front in pretty much everything. Like if I was being told by one not to do something or to do something, I was being told by both of them.
So your father would go along with your mother?
It wasn't going along with. They were parents. They were parenting me together as parents.
And would he agree with her when she would do those things?
They would agree with each other as parents.
How
Yes.
about your father? Would he agree with your mother when she was doing those things?
Yes, and she would agree with him when he was doing those things.
What?
They would both agree with my father would agree with my mother in the same way that my mother would agree with my father. They were parents that were parenting me together.
And at the time, did you think my father is a beta male for agreeing with her? When you were young?
No, 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 I didn't. No. I mean, I will say this: I resented the correction I was getting from my parents, but they were right. I mean, pretty much always, almost every time, in retrospect, they were right. I should have listened to them.
Amazing.
I would have avoided years of bad decisions. But no, I don't think that he was I don't think either one of them were betas because they were sharing together as being parents to their child.
That's amazing.